如果不给我钱，我非得跳河不行。
同志们辛苦了。
China's sex army. Now, I know that sounds provocative, but we're literally talking about an army of people that are relying on sex, sexploitation, pornography, and prostitution to do the bidding of the Chinese government. And I'm not even joking. Now, when you think of the Chinese government, you probably think of a brutal authoritarian dictatorship that is actually quite boring. I mean, look at any of their parades or any of their press events or any, like when they're sitting the NPC thing and people are giving their speeches, there's literally people falling asleep in the crowd. It's freaking boring. I lived in China for 10 years. The Chinese government is both malicious and terrifying and boring. It's not some exciting communist, hammer and sickle, let's go and have a revolution. They already had the revolution. Now it's just time to be brutal and crack down and have a bunch of old people hold on to their power no matter what. So what if I told you that they have been actually mobilizing a sex army so that you can't see what's actually happening in China? It's actually quite clever and it serves a couple purposes. I never ever take a sponsorship unless I can put my name behind the product. And guess what? Today's video is brought to you by Incogni, and I can tell you I put my name behind this product. Are you tired of spam robocalls and junk mail, or the idea that there are people out there called data brokers that are out to sell all of your information for profit, including every single detail about your life? Medical records, phone numbers, addresses, email addresses, all of your info is up for sale because of these really, really messed up companies and individuals. Well, Incogni's fantastic because once you sign up, what you do is you put in your information and then they go to work. They go around and talk to each one of these data brokers and tell them, you better get rid of this information and you are legally bound to do so. Through that process, you can actually watch as your data gets removed from these data brokers, and it's super satisfying to watch because you know that you're safer out there in this world. I especially love the fact that you're able to sort about what's important. What's the worst data broker? What's the worst company? And you can see your data be removed from that. The first 100 people to use code CMILK at the link below will get 20% off Incogni. Protect your privacy today. Go to incogni.com/CMilk and use the code CMilk to take your personal data off the market. This all started when I noticed during the white paper protests. If you guys don't know, in Shanghai in 2022, tons of people started protesting in the street, and they knew that they couldn't protest about anything specifically. So what they did was hold up blank pieces of A4 size paper. They were protesting the COVID lockdowns and the Chinese government in general. In fact, a lot of people were asking for Xi Jinping, the dictator of China, to step down, which is crazy. I mean, this is China, one of the lowest freedom scores in the world. They're bordering on North Korea territory here with a 9 out of 100 on the Freedom Index scale. It's real bad. But when I was looking for coverage of this, obviously people were sending me videos from China, and as the government was cracking down and disappearing people and throwing people in jail and making this problem go away very silently, I noticed that if I was to go on Twitter, well, it's X now, isn't it? It's ridiculous. Anyway, back when it was called Twitter, when I was looking for information about the A4 protests in Shanghai and around the rest of the country, I noticed that there were just torrents and torrents of prostitution ads from Chinese accounts, like Chinese language accounts. Now, this didn't really come up so much if I was searching things in English, but if I was searching things in Chinese, it was all prostitution ads. And that was absolutely insane to me. I was like, why are there prostitution ads? You guys have to understand, both pornography and prostitution in China are highly illegal things. They're very illegal. Now, are they everywhere? Yes, but the government really doesn't want people to know about that kind of stuff because that's the kind of thing that makes China look like a messy, lawless, corrupt place that's supposed to have this really intense rule of law and authoritarian fists that make sure everybody faces up to their crimes. It flies in the face of that. The last thing they want is a bunch of people to see prostitute ads coming out of China when people are searching for stuff. But what if I told you that was completely intentional. You see, people in the Chinese government didn't want anyone to know about the protest, so they intentionally allowed these accounts to proliferate. In fact, I suspect there was an entire branch of the government that was in charge of making these accounts go out there to misdirect the public. And that's exactly what it was. Because later on, when there was the big flood that happened and everything that China wanted to cover up, whenever there was any sort of disaster or anything where people were looking up, especially like journalists looking for information coming out of China, the last thing they wanted is for people to see or discuss those things. So what happened was, if you looked up Zhuozhou, for example, which was a town in Hebei that got flooded because they were redirecting floodwater away from Beijing, there was a lot of people that were finding ways to get videos out of here to say the government is flooding us on purpose to protect themselves in Beijing. Look at what's happened to our town. All you would see is Chinese prostitution ads over and over and over again, but only if you searched in Chinese. You start to put two and two together. What was happening was they knew that if a Chinese person, which is going on Twitter, they're gonna feel like they're doing something wrong. It is very illegal to access Twitter from China. The Chinese government bans Twitter, it bans all Western social media. So if people are downloading a VPN to jump over the Great Firewall, so to speak, and to go on an illegal website to find information about something, they want to make sure that the first thing they see is something that makes them uncomfortable or entices them away from that discussion. They don't want Chinese people in China going over the Great Firewall of China and seeing what's really happening. China can maintain complete order and control over the internet in China. In fact, I call it the intranet. In China, there is no freedom of speech. There is nothing you can see online that the government can't control. But when you get over that firewall, it's a free-for-all. Chinese people can use a VPN to go see the truth, what's actually happening, ironically, in their own country from Western platforms. And that's exactly what was happening. So what better than to mobilize an entire branch of the government to put up prostitution ads to make people, number one, feel uncomfortable if they jumped over the firewall. Think about this from the mentality of a Chinese person. I'm doing something illegal by using a VPN and going on Twitter. Now I'm looking at something I'm not supposed to look at. And now I just see a bunch of ads for something that's illegal in my country. That's like 4 hits of being uncomfortable, right? Then you have the people that are like, well, maybe this is not a legitimate thread about this topic. Maybe I'm looking up the flood damage in Bajou and I just see prostitution ads everywhere. Maybe this thread is compromised. Maybe it's just some crap spam, right? This is some garbage that I'm not supposed to be looking at because it's just not true, because it's covered in prostitution ads. But it went further than that, right? It's not just the Chinese people that are jumping over the firewall to check news and stuff. I started seeing this kind of material pop up over everything. But I didn't really start to notice it properly until I tried to cover it. And this is where I suspect something very, very weird is going on. In my last video, I covered this very thing. I said on Twitter, why when I search for so-and-so thing, I get a bunch of prostitution ads? I blurred them out, I censored them, I didn't show anything to break YouTube's terms of services. But when I posted that video, which was already okayed, it was okayed by YouTube, they pre-checked it well ahead of time. After a while, it went yellow, which means it was demonetized, which means it will get less views probably, and less people will want to see it, and I won't get paid for my content. Now, I thought that was a little suspicious because, like I said, everything was completely censored. So when I appealed it, they said, no, that goes against our terms of service for monetization. You're not allowed to post that. Well, you can post it, but you can't make any money off of it. So I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So I escalate it, and I escalate it, and I escalate it all the way to the top. Now, by this time, the video has already died. It's not getting any more views anymore. I haven't made any money off of this, but they go, yeah, you're right. It was a mistake. Sorry, it won't happen again. I'm like, what? So the next video, the exact same thing happens. And I realize that when I start talking about this kind of stuff, I suspiciously get demonetized. And then it just turns out that it was all a misunderstanding and it won't happen again, but it keeps happening again. I don't know what's going on that front, but I'll tell you, this probably goes pretty deep. Now, another prong of this is not just the prostitution ads, it's the straight up pornography. There is an army of pornographers from China that are posting Chinese pornography on all kinds of accounts. And usually it's on accounts where people are posting politically sensitive things. I looked at a lot of accounts that post in Mandarin language, and this is where you'd get hit with most of the Chinese porn, which again is illegal in China. Radio Free Asia, BBC Mandarin, a ton of dissident accounts, like Chinese people that are typing in Chinese and posting articles in Chinese against the Chinese government will have these Chinese pornography accounts. And what happens is when you go to these accounts, when you actually look at them, they're all replying to different political articles that China doesn't want you to see. They don't want you to know about this topic, especially if you're a Chinese speaker that is living abroad and you are on Twitter. They want you to be distracted by these pornography accounts. Now, here's the problem. When you actually follow through with these accounts, most of them will have a Telegram link. Now, Telegram is some sort of messaging app. It's supposed to be anonymous, but it's a way to continue to talk to these people. And when you actually talk to these people, when you go past the Twitter element, they want to get you in conversation. They want to get you on camera. They want to get you on a video call, because what they're going to do after that is get videos or pictures of you in compromising situations, if you catch my drift, and then exploit you for tons of money. In fact, this one guy, Wang Zhe'an, noticed something odd. Each time he posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, his replies would be flooded with sexual spam within minutes. Once the Chinese investigative journalist in exile made a post discussing X's new monetization policies. A user named ZZZ963, seemingly an attractive young single woman, replied with a photo of her in lingerie with the words, "When will you come up to me and mess my bed?" ZZZ963 was one of the several accounts posting sexual messages in Wang's reply. They all had blue check marks and were granted greater visibility on the platform. So what happened to this poor guy is he ended up getting enticed by this young lady, and the compromising photos were extorted from him. He was charged like 200,000 RMB or something. It was like $27,000 to have his photos not spread around. They were blackmailing him. So these accounts typically are sexploitation. Some of them lead to crypto scams where they kind of want to get close to you and act like your girlfriend and then get you to spend a bunch of money. All of this ties back to this huge criminal ring in China. And some people speculate it could be related to those huge criminal gangs in Burma and in Cambodia, where they have enslaved thousands and thousands of people from all over Asia, basically, to do the shazhupan, or the pig butchering scam, which is when you get a random message from somebody pretending like they know you, they initiate the conversation and try to get you to participate in a crypto scam. A lot of this stuff is seemingly connected. So there's a two-pronged approach. Basically, what the Chinese government seems to be doing is mobilizing a ton of these accounts to post hundreds of times per hour, which, by the way, is not supposed to be allowed on Twitter. I have no idea how they're doing this. To post all kinds of pornography and spam and prostitution ads across the board to make sure that Chinese speakers see that first before they see any sort of dissenting material, any truth about China. They're stooping to such low and scummy levels that they're acting like some sort of pimp, exploiting all of these people and making sure that they don't see the truth about what's happening in their own country. And then you also have the criminal element, which are these people that are actually scamming Chinese speakers and trying to sexploit them, so to speak, and get money out of them. It's this horrific thing that is very, very easy to understand why it's happening when you actually understand what's happened with Twitter. Now, Elon and Twitter could do a lot of things, X could do a lot of things about these porn and prostitution accounts because they're running rampant and preventing the freedom of speech, the very thing that Elon champions all the time. What they're doing is preventing an entire subset of people from seeing actually what's happening in China. It's blocking people from seeing the real content, the real videos, and the real protest messages from China where this stuff isn't allowed, and they're being bombarded with sexploitation spam. This is probably a government approach, and it serves a very, very clear purpose. But one thing I don't understand is, why hasn't Elon gotten rid of this stuff? Why is this stuff all of a sudden so much more prolific than it was before? Why are these accounts running rampant? He could turn this off with an algorithm switch in 2 seconds. You could stop these spam porn prostitution accounts and stop this from happening in his tracks immediately. But he doesn't. In fact, a lot of these accounts have a blue check mark. They are verified accounts. They are checked so that people's gut instinct when they see it is that it's a real legitimate account. These are criminal organizations in an authoritarian government using checkmark verified accounts to do bad things on a Western platform. And I don't think that's correct. In fact, I think that's being complicit in something very, very messed up. And I think there needs to be something done about it. There's some great articles that I linked below about this very topic, and I don't see this ending anytime soon, because as long as certain people are making money off of this and other people are incentivized to allow this to happen, I don't see why it would stop. Do you? Don't forget that I have a fantastic live show where I cover this kind of stuff every single Friday. It's called The China Show. I highly recommend you guys go over there and check it out. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you're watching the live show because it's such a fun experience. We cover fun stuff, we cover pertinent stuff, we cover current events. We have people that we talk to in China where we get videos sent to us, and it's really, really awesome. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll catch you in a couple weeks on my next one. But in the meantime, make sure you're watching The China Show, all right? Thanks.